Hi, I'm Peggy Farren, and you're watching the Understand Photography Show, where we talk about travel, nature, and fine art photography. Today we're going to be talking with Satesh Ramjattan about exposure bracketing and blending techniques. The Understand Photography Show is first a podcast, so if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook and you're wondering why we don't have any visuals, that's why. We have a much larger audience who listen to us as a podcast, but we love all of our audiences, so thank you so much. Please subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, the whole 9 yards. Speaking of Facebook, we have two Facebook groups, two interactive Facebook groups. One is just called the Understand Photography Facebook group, so it's facebook.com/groups/understand photography. That's a general photography group. You can talk about anything in there. You can show off your pictures. You can ask for critiquing. You can ask technical questions. You can ask for help on what kind of lens to buy. It's just a very general group and a very, very kind group. So if you're looking for nice people to help you with your photography, that's our group. The second group is a newer group. We just started recently, and it's called Selling Your Photography as Art. And I can't believe this, I forgot the URL. But if you go to facebook.com/understand photography, you'll see both of our groups there. The Selling Your Photography as Art group is all focused on selling artwork, but photography as artwork. It's a very specific group. How do you sell fine art photography? How do you get into galleries? How do you put together a portfolio? Do you have any website techniques? What about today we were talking about experiential marketing, where you can have dinner with the artist. So that's what that group is all about. So I hope you'll join us on one of our Facebook groups. And to get on our mailing list, all you have to do is sign up for one of our freebies. So go to understandphotography.com, and the very first thing you'll see is it says sign up for freebies. So you have your choice of different things or you can take them all, travel tips, which camera to buy, how to get tack sharp images every time. All that stuff is on understandphotography.com. Okay, so today on the Understand Photography Show, we've got Satesh Ramjattan. How's that?
Good.
Satesh has been here before. He was here on episode 103, and we talked about long exposures. So today we're going to talk about long exposure. What are we talking about today?
Talking about ETTR and bracketing, as well as exposure blending.
Okay. ETTR, all right, let's just go right into it. But
Yeah.
now I forgot your introduction. So you're a fine art photographer.
Yeah, I specialize in seascapes.
Seascapes, which are really cool, by the way.
Thank you.
And let's start with, you're Satesh.com too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I was lucky enough to have that.
Man, you got
yeah.
lucky with that one.
Yeah. It pays to have a
cool
foreign name, yeah.
Yeah, but Satesh is a pretty common Indian name, isn't it?
I
know other Sateshes.
Oh, okay, so yeah. I know two other ones, so.
So that's
yeah, I guess
it's not, it's like
yeah.
Peggy.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Peggy is kind of common. Everybody's heard
Yeah,
it, but
yeah.
you don't know a lot of Peggy's.
Yep.
Same thing with Satesh, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but to get Satesh.com.
I was lucky, yeah.
I wonder if Peggy.com is available. I should check.
Check it out. So, yeah.
All right, so what is ETTR? What does that stand for?
So ETTR is an acronym. It stands for exposing to the right.
Okay.
And so what to the right is referring to is the camera's histogram.
Okay.
Do you know what the histogram is?
I know what the histogram is, but why don't you explain what the histogram is for the people who don't know what
it is? A graph on your camera, and what it shows are the tonal values from light to dark.
Mm-hmm.
And to the left side, you have your dark tones, so like where your shadows and your blacks are. In the middle are your midtones, and to the right, exposing to the right, are where your highlights and bright areas are of your image.
Okay. Now, how does someone find their histogram if they don't know?
Well, it varies on different cameras. So I have a Canon, and all I have to do is hit the info button so you have to have live view on, and then you hit the info button, and it'll scroll through all the different views you have on your camera. You can have like the electronic level. I think you press it 4 times and you'll see the histogram.
Okay.
So it looks like a box with like a 2-dimensional mountain range. It'll have like peaks and valleys.
Okay.
And that's how you know that's your histogram.
And I can't remember how to do it on a Nikon, but it's pretty simple on a Nikon. Some of the cameras, it just automatically comes up.
Yeah, some of them do.
So when you're about to take a picture, you'll see the histogram.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you need to be looking at the histogram before you take the picture? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
So do you need to be shooting in live view?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you can't use ETTR if you're not using live view?
You can, but when you're using it with the histogram helps you gauge how far you can expose to the right.
Okay. And exposing to the right side is the white side, is what you
Yeah, so
said,
you're making
right?
your image brighter. So you're technically overexposing it from where it should be. So, but what that does is allows you to get more detail in your photos, especially in the shadow areas. And also, when you're shooting something brighter and shooting in RAW, I got to mention that, by the way. So for ETTR, you need to be shooting in RAW format.
Okay.
Because it won't really work in JPEG. You won't have the flexibility.
Okay, and now for those of people who don't understand the difference between RAW and JPEG, go through a brief explanation of that.
So a RAW file is a RAW file that has all of the info from your camera sensor. So all of the light information, all the dark information, your midtones, everything is in that file. And it allows you to do much more editing. So you can recover highlights, you can bring up shadows. You just have a lot more wiggle room to play with to work with your file in post-processing.
Because the JPEG is a compressed file, so
Yeah,
they
it's compressed. Yeah.
So one of the examples that we use, and I can't remember the numbers because I'm really bad with numbers, but you have, let's say, in a RAW file, you'll have 100 different shades of white.
Yeah, yeah.
And that same picture will only have 5 shades of
Yeah,
white
exactly.
in a JPEG.
Something like that, yeah.
So that's
have
why
so
you
much
can
more
bring.
wiggle room.
That's
Yeah.
why you can bring all that information up in a
Yeah.
RAW file.
Yeah.
Plus, a RAW file is like 20 megapixels, and a JPEG is like.
Well, I think they're the same amount of megapixels, but the file size actually is different.
Okay.
So with my camera, I have a 50 megapixel camera.
Uh-huh.
So the file sizes range between 50 and I think 70, depending on how much data I capture. So that's why you'll see. So if you take a dark photo, you'll see it actually has less megabytes than a brighter photo. And that's because there's more information in that brighter photo for you to work with.
Oh,
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah, and a JPEG is usually like a couple megabytes, like maybe 5 or 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much more information in that RAW file.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
If you're going to use ETTR, exposing to the right,
Yep.
first step is you need to be shooting in RAW.
Yep, absolutely.
Second step is you need to be shooting in live view so you can see the histogram.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. And then the histogram is that mountain range graph.
Yeah, it looks
that
like
you
a
see.
two-dimensional mountain range, but it's going to have like peaks and valleys. So where the peaks are showing you where you have more dark areas or light areas, and in the middle, and the valleys are like where you have less of that value.
Okay.
Also, so to the left side, to the far left, is where you have all of your black. So if you're touching the left side of the histogram, you're going to see a line there. If you're touching that, that means you're severely underexposed, and that's really like pure black. And it's the same thing on the right side. If you're touching that right line, you're probably overexposing too much, and you're going to have pure white.
Which means it's overexposed and you can't save it.
Yeah, you may not be able to save it.
Or at least
to
that
recover
part
that
of the
data.
picture.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And another, like I said before, so the JPEG, so the preview you see on your camera when you take a picture, it's actually a JPEG.
Okay.
Most people may not know that. So what you're seeing is just a representation of the JPEG, but there may actually be more data there in your RAW file. So it may look a little overexposed, but since you're shooting in RAW, you can maybe recover that data.
So if you can, that's why the histogram is more important than looking at the picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can look at the picture and you say, that looks a little overexposed.
Yeah, but you won't have
But
to
the
worry.
histogram says, well, you're living on the edge over
Yeah,
here on
exactly.
the right,
That's a
but
good way
you're
to put it.
okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Now, should you activate or whatever the blinkies, what's that called? Highlight.
Yeah, blinkies, yeah.
Highlight. What's it called?
I don't know, I guess everybody calls it blinkies.
Highlight warning or something. I think
Yeah.
everybody calls it the
Yeah.
blinkies, though.
I don't personally use it. I find it distracting.
I do
and
too.
I've gotten to know my camera.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's the important thing, is to get to know your camera, especially with ETTR. There's no real way to say how far you can push your histogram because all camera models are different. They all have
Okay.
different sensors.
Okay.
And it's not by brand, it's pretty much by model. So if you have an older camera, you're not going to have as much, your sensor is going to be kind of old and it won't hold that much data. Whereas new ones, the dynamic range is amazing. So you can push further to the right than before.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
it's going to take a little trial and error. So go out and experiment, see how far you can actually push to the right before losing that data
All right.
and that
So
detail.
So, and the whole reason for the ETTR is to bring out more detail in the picture.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing more light into the picture.
Absolutely.
But hopefully not too much light.
Not too much, yeah.
So you're just basically living on the edge
Living
is
on
what
the
you
edge,
want to do, right? Okay, I get that. That's cool.
Yeah, I like that. Living on the edge.
And what does that make a difference when you're printing, or does that just like, okay, here's the raw file, now I've got to edit it and I've overexposed too much of the picture, but at least I didn't lose anything. Is that Is that basically what you're doing?
Yeah, so to answer your question, it does make a difference in printing, especially if you're printing big, because now you're going to have more detail to show in that picture. So like, let's say for example, you're shooting a tree, you're going to be able to capture every single leaf now, you know, and recover that detail. So when you print it big, you're going to see every detail of that leaf.
Okay.
The other good part too is that when you overexpose a little bit, you have less noise in your picture, like noise or grain.
Okay.
You know, because grain and noise, they live in your darker areas. So if you take a normal exposure,
they live in your darker areas.
That's where they like to live. Yeah. Okay. So if you were to take a normal exposure and there's like very like shadowy areas, and you go into Lightroom or Photoshop and raise that, you're going to see a lot more noise there than in the brighter areas. Yeah. So that's why it's better to make those shadow areas have more detail by shooting ETTR, and then you can lower it. You know, it's better to lower something than to raise it, especially in photography.
Unless it's overexposed.
Yeah, exactly.
And the way you know it's overexposed is
you have to know your limit.
To crawl up the right side of the wall on the histogram. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's good. So that's how we know you're gone too far if it's crawling up the right.
Yeah, exactly.
But you want it as close to that as you can get.
Yeah, like I said, you know, with more modern day cameras, you can maybe touch it a little bit, but it's going to take some trial and error to see where your camera is actually capable of.
Okay, all right. So when you get it into the software, Lightroom or Photoshop, whatever you use, then you know, maybe half the picture's too bright, but it's no big deal. Okay, I get that. Oh, that's very good.
Because you can bring down the exposure. Because from that raw file, you have all that information there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our first lesson of the day.
Okay.
What about exposure bracketing?
Okay, so exposure.
But you do you do landscape photography, but it's seascapes mostly, right?
Yeah.
You do some abstract stuff too, right? Don't
Yes,
you?
I do. Okay. Some abstracts in the ocean, yeah.
So when should we be using exposure bracketing? And well, first of all, what is exposure bracketing?
So exposure bracketing is when you take multiple exposures of the same shot. So for instance, you can take a base exposure where you're exposing for the midtones, and then you take another exposure, exposing for like the sky. You know, because you know, like especially at sunrise or sunset, most people are exposing for the sky, and then the foreground is underexposed. So by bracketing, you're taking one exposure for the sky, and then a second one for the foreground, and then you can take a third one just to be safe, and then you blend them together in Photoshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Photoshop or Lightroom or Photoshop Elements or Photomatics or Aurora.
Yeah. I mean,
they have a lot of software programs.
There are, to combine them together.
They call that HDR photography, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which stands for what?
High dynamic range.
And what does that mean?
That means that there's a lot of, in that image, you'll have a lot of your dark values and bright values all in one. So there won't really be an underexposed or overexposed area. There's just more information in that file.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So high dynamic range means you have all the ranges, basically.
All the ranges, yeah, pretty much.
So you have the lights, you have the mediums, and the darks.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So how do you use a histogram in bracketing? And does your histogram make any difference in bracketing?
Yeah, you're using it more of a gauge to see.
Is it the same thing where you're doing one all the way white, like living on the edge of the white?
Yeah, you can look at it like that.
Do you do one living all the way on the
other side
dark?
of the edge? Yeah, living on the dark side.
The dark side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then one in the middle.
In the middle, yeah.
How do you know where the middle is on a histogram?
So you'll know it when neither side is touching. So you're gonna kind of have like a little lone mountain. It'll be like that, like a little curve.
In the middle.
Yeah.
Maybe. What if you have a picture that's, of course I can't think of a landscape picture, but I could think of something like if you have a person all in black on a white background, you're just going to have one little
Yeah, a little spike.
little
yeah.
mountain.
Yeah.
Spike is a better word. Yeah. And then the rest of the.
It's gonna vary. You know, most
Okay.
of the time on an overcast day, if you take a picture, you're gonna have a lot of midtones because there's not that much dynamic range where there's like this extreme brightness or extreme darkness.
Right.
So it's just kind of flat.
So you really wouldn't need to bracket on those kind of days usually.
You don't need to.
But you would need to on high contrast
Yeah,
days.
exactly.
The sun and the dark or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Well, for instance, when we do our Cuba trip,
Okay.
and we do some walking around right in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
and there's some harsh, you're in a city, so their streets are fairly narrow.
Yeah.
So you've got some harsh shadows with some bright sun behind it.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of bracketing when we do that because we want the
Yeah,
whole
you want to
street
get all
scene
the
to come out.
exactly.
So, and yes, we can go at the best time of day, but that's when we want to be doing the other cool stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that is a good example of just
Yeah.
those dark areas in contrast with the bright areas.
And the real estate people, they all use HDR photography now, which we used to just call it bracketing, but now they call it HDR photography.
Yeah.
Back in the olden days with film, we used to bracket just to make sure one of the pictures would come out okay because you were never positive.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd have your light meter,
Yeah.
you'd have all that stuff, but you never really knew until
Yeah.
you got the pictures back.
Yeah.
So we
And
would
then you're like,
bracket,
"Oh, man, I wish
we
I had
would
done
take
that."
3 different exposures just to make sure one was right.
Yeah.
So
You can actually take as many as you want, depending on the dynamic range of the scene. I know most cameras, you can actually set it to be automatic. You look for, it's a function called auto exposure bracketing, or AEB.
okay.
And what that does is you can actually tell it to take, I think my camera goes up to 5, so I can tell it to take 5 exposures. So once I click the button, it's going to take the first one, then automatically take the second, third, fourth, and fifth.
Okay.
And then you can actually tell it to combine it for you too, which I don't do. I like to manually blend them together.
Because then you get if it blends it in camera, then you're getting a JPEG back.
Yeah, yeah.
So you don't have all that leeway to work on your raw file.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's always better to do your blending on the
Afterwards,
computer,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I
Shouldn't
just like
say
to have that
always,
control. You don't have to
but
always, but
If
you
you're like
wanna
an
have the control-
Instagram junkie or something, then
Yeah, if you're looking for, if you have to pass off something to a client right away or whatever, then yeah, you have the option. But
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's good to know. And I don't know if we have that in a blog article or not. I know that we have it all written out because we do a lot of HDR on our photo trips.
Gotcha,
So we
yeah.
have like, here's how you do it on a Nikon, here's how you do it on this kind
Yeah,
of Canon, here's how you do
yeah.
it on a Sony. So now for me, I never do that though. I don't do it automatically. I do it just manually
Yeah.
because it's so much easier
It's
for
better,
me to
yeah.
shoot in manual. I'm faster.
yeah, for sure.
Because otherwise you got to go into the menu, do the AEB,
Yep,
come out of the menu, and then take the pictures.
Yeah.
Where I can just take the pictures.
exactly. Yeah, just
And I'm
Just
not.
look at
I'm not.
Histogram or-
I'm not as scientific as you probably are. I just sort of. I'm like, okay, I'll get the mid-tone exposure,
Yeah.
and then I'll
No,
just
that's the
go.
basic
I'll
idea
go
of it.
like. I'll go like with my, my shutter speed. I'll just go
yep.
one way, and then I'll go the other way.
Yeah. No, that's really how you do it.
It's a very
you know?
scientific way of doing it.
But it is what it is. Yeah.
But it gives
It works.
me enough.
Yeah.
It gives me 3 pictures in a row that
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
easy to blend back later.
Yeah.
And of
And-
course, I just learned. I was really upset to learn actually, because even if I do it without a tripod, as long as I'm holding my elbows in with my left hand underneath,
Yeah.
holding that camera very steady, and not moving it very much, I can blend those pictures
Oh,
even
yeah.
without being on a tripod in either Photoshop or Lightroom.
Yeah.
What I learned though is Photoshop Elements, you have to be perfect. So if you're
okay.
using Photoshop Elements to blend your pictures, you have to do that on a tripod and they have to be exactly lined up,
Yeah.
which I was really mad about because obviously Adobe has
Yeah, but they want you to get the
they
more
want you to
expensive
pay
one.
it. Yeah. Anyway.
The extra options,
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
It's like getting the heated seats in your car.
Yeah.
You have to pay for those options.
All right, when you're bracketing, I just realized Heather wrote this down and I said it, but should you change your ISO, your aperture, or your shutter speed?
So since we're shooting landscapes, I keep my f-stop the same. All I'm doing is adjusting my shutter. I always keep my ISO at 100 at base because I want a clean image. If it needs it, I'll raise it maybe up to 400, but on a normal basis, I'm keeping at base 100.
And because you're on a tripod most
Yeah,
of the time.
I'm always on a tripod,
Okay.
yeah.
And I'm hardly ever on a tripod, so yeah. So
Yeah.
I usually change my shutter speed, but I will change my ISO.
Oh, okay.
The one thing you shouldn't change
Yeah.
is the aperture. And why is that?
Well, it depends. So if you want that depth of field, you want to keep that the same. So that way everything is in focus and sharp. So that's why I don't really change my depth of field. And when you're bracketing too, if your aperture changes, that way and then your depth of field gets out of whack. So you won't have a good blend.
It won't look as good.
It won't look as good. Like you'll
gotta
have
keep-
one part maybe out of focus and the other part's in focus. So it won't look natural.
Yeah, so you need to keep. So
Yeah.
leave your aperture alone, change your shutter speed.
Yeah, and if you have to, your ISO.
change the
Yeah.
ISO.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, so what are the options on blending? Like, how do you do it? How do you do it? Do you use Photoshop or Lightroom?
I use Photoshop, yeah.
Okay, Photoshop. So how
Yeah.
do you do it in Photoshop?
So there's a couple ways. So I'll start out in Lightroom, and I'll do some basic editing to my 3 exposures. And then what I do is I'll select all 3 of them and right-click. And this is inside of Lightroom. You right-click and say Edit as Layers in Photoshop. And what that does, it automatically opens Photoshop and puts them in layers.
All 3
so
pictures.
all 3
Okay.
layers are in their own separate layer. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll start with like the base exposure or like the midtones. And from there, I'll start adding layer masks. So a layer mask, it allows you to, what I say, conceal or reveal certain parts of an image. And I always tell people the easy way to remember is black conceals and white reveals. So on that layer mask, by default, it's white. So it's going to show everything. So if I start painting black, I'm going to start hiding certain parts of that image.
And the way I remember it, because I always, that little saying you just said, I've heard that 1,000 times and I can never remember it.
Really? Okay.
I just remember black hole. Black makes a hole in your picture,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I can remember it. Black hole.
Okay. That's a good way too. I guess I'm better with rhymes. I don't know.
I don't know why I can never remember that rhyme.
Yeah, so black conceals, white reveals.
Okay, so you put the 3 different layers in Photoshop, and then you basically just start erasing with the black.
Yes, but you have to make the layer mask first. I don't paint
Right.
directly on the image.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
right.
then I'll start painting on
But
that
the layer mask basically is a way to erase
Yeah,
parts
exactly.
of the picture.
Pretty much, yes,
You could use the
exactly.
eraser to do the same thing, but the problem with the eraser is if you
Yeah.
make a mistake, you're
can't
doomed.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like non-destructive editing.
Yeah, so if
know,
you use a layer mask,
yeah, you have the ability to go back.
yeah, you can make all the mistakes you want and
Yeah.
you can fix it.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so that to me sounds a lot harder than just using File, Merge to HDR, boom, I'm done. So why do you do it that way?
I guess because I like the results better. It gives you a more natural looking image. Whereas, with software HDR, it's often that oversaturated and doesn't look very realistic. So I personally like my images natural looking.
Right.
So that's why I take the extra steps to blend them manually. And
Okay.
it's after a while, it's not that hard because you get a rhythm going and you're like, okay, I'm going to start with this. I'm going to bring in some of these highlights, bring in some of these shadows. And after a while, you're just having fun painting, and that's what it's all about, right? Fun.
Well, you and I have a different definition of fun. Sitting at the computer editing.
Well, it's funny you say that because I actually don't spend that much time because I have a rhythm to it. I can exposure blend an image maybe like in 20 minutes, depending on the complexity
20
of it.
minutes is a long time.
Oh, I guess, but I get the results I want,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because
Yeah.
if you do File, wait, how does it in Photoshop? I remember how to do it in Lightroom now because I've been doing it
just
in Lightroom.
merge
I
to
used to do it in
HDR.
Photoshop, now I do it in Lightroom, but just merge to HDR.
Yeah.
That takes, what would you say, 5 seconds?
Depending on your computer, yeah. It can take
5
up to a minute.
seconds, 20 minutes. 5 seconds, 20 minutes. I think I will do the HDR the other
Okay.
way. But I am actually a very firm believer that everyone who uses Photoshop should learn to use layer masks.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
it's in our Photoshop cram course, which
Okay.
you can get online, by the way, understandphotography.com.
No, it's very important.
It's only $59 for the Photoshop class, and we teach you how to use layer masks in that. We even teach it in Photoshop Elements class, too, because layer masks give you a lot of power in editing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, the other problem with doing the layer mask way that you're doing it, for somebody like me who's not using a tripod, it's not going to line the images up automatically.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can always do in Photoshop automatically align images. So it's another automatic feature where you select the 3 of them, and I believe it's File, Edit, and then you go down and it'll say Auto Align Images.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah. And
cool! I learned something.
So you'll have a little bit of an edge issue on the edges. You'll see, but you can just crop it in.
Yeah.
But everything will be aligned.
Oh.
Yeah.
See?
And that takes, a couple seconds too.
I'm into a couple seconds.
Yeah. And then from there, that's when you can start blending. But that's if you're not on a tripod. If you're on a tripod, you have no issues.
Yeah, no, because you're going to
Yeah.
be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good to know. Some people can take that some people get really turned off by the whole word HDR because
Yeah, I'm
they
one of
get
them.
turned off by that cartoon look that
Yeah.
some people do.
Yeah.
Because some people can really overdo it. But you know what? Photography is art. If they like that look,
Yeah.
somebody else probably like it too if they're trying to sell their art.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
You're a purist. You like a real look.
I like
Although
a
you're an
real look.
abstract photographer too, so you don't like it that real.
Well, the abstract images I'm taking are real. They're just abstract,
Yeah,
so
that's
they're not altered in any way.
They're not photoshopped
Yeah,
to the
they're not
point where they.
photoshopped. Yeah, exactly.
So I get it. Okay.
So I'm still a purist.
I'm not a purist. You would think I am by looking at my pictures.
Yeah.
Because my pictures look really real. But I haven't
Then
decided
you are a
if
purist.
I don't know if I am.
You just
though.
know how to use the software and
Maybe
not
that's
pushing it too
true.
far.
Yeah,
you
maybe
know?
that's true.
I think some people push it way too far and it becomes like, oh wow, look at all these colors. It's like psychedelic almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big, I tell you what, I'm still a portrait photographer too, and that is one of my pet peeves when there's like, somebody will show me their headshot that someone else took and they said, I like this picture, and I'm like, they just blurred their face to the point of almost unrecognizable,
Yeah.
but they don't show any wrinkles. But
Yeah.
it looks ridiculous
Yeah, it
because
does.
it's just blurry.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I take the time, and that's probably why I don't like to sit at the computer so much, because
Yeah.
I take the time to get rid of every little wrinkle,
Every little wrinkle.
by little by little, and
that's
then I bring them
time-consuming.
back softly so that they're still there, but they're
Yeah.
subtle, so it looks like real skin.
It looks real, yeah. Just
like a bunch of blur.
Yeah, like the novellas,
Yeah.
putting
yeah.
the little grease on the lens and giving it that soft look.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
want it to look like, I want them to look like a real person.
Yeah, exactly. Same with me. I want my landscape to look real and not like photoshopped.
Yeah.
So,
Although some of them, I work with a guy, he's our leader, our local leader for our Tuscany trip. He lives in Tuscany. And I don't know what he does to his pictures, but it definitely is a Photoshop technique.
okay.
But he has a real look to his images that is just amazing.
Oh, okay.
So, Heather will put his link in the show notes stuff. Stefano Caporali.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? I'm not. That's
It's
why.
an art.
That's why I don't think I'm a purist, even though my stuff seems like pure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love his work.
Okay.
So,
I'll have to look him up.
all right. So, you feel like layer masks is the way to make them look real. That's the best way, or are there other techniques in using software where you can still make, still enhance the photo,
Yeah.
but
Well, there is another technique called luminosity mask, but it's essentially the same thing where you're taking layer mask, but you're doing selections a little differently. So you're not manually painting.
okay, and so explain luminosity mask.
So a luminosity mask allows you to specifically target and make selections of certain tonal values. So if you want to just select the dark areas of your photo, you can do that by using a luminosity mask.
Okay,
And it'll automatically make that layer mask for you based on that selection.
okay, and that's in Photoshop.
That's in Photoshop, yeah.
And where is it? How do you find it? Is it like
So-
an adjustment layer, or?
No, it's kind of hidden. It's kind of a hidden feature, or well, not really a feature, but I guess it is, in your channels.
Okay,
But it's very complicated to do it that way. But you can actually buy a luminosity mask panel. And what it is, it's almost like a plugin for Photoshop.
okay,
And it gives you a panel that's pre-made, and you can just tell it to just select the lights, the darks, or the midtones. And it automatically does all the work for you. Everything is selected, the mask is made, and then you just get back to masking.
Then you
and
can
painting
tweak it
on.
how you like
Exactly.
it.
It's
Okay.
actually, that's the best part of it, is it can be a lot more accurate than going in with your finest paintbrush, because this is now based on light values.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a lot more accurate.
Okay.
You know.
And we found out from Joe, it's also available in Lightroom,
Okay, good.
that you can use luminosity mask. And I believe, I have to look this up and Heather can put it in the show notes. I believe that Joe did one of our Tuesday short video tips on luminosity masks in Lightroom.
Okay, cool.
So, do we know if Elements, does Photoshop Elements have that option? Do
I'm
we
not
know?
sure.
I don't know.
I've never
either.
used Elements, so I don't know.
I've never used the luminosity mask,
Okay,
so
there we go. But I guess if it has layer mask options, maybe it can work. But as far as I know, when I downloaded them, it just says for Photoshop.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Phew, we're getting a little technical. We need to dumb it down for me.
It is kind of technical, yeah. But once, like I said, once you get used to it, it becomes a rhythm, and you're like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
Just like everything, it takes practice.
But the whole point of this conversation is that we are trying to make any kind of picture, but let's just say landscape photograph.
Mm-hmm.
We're exposing to the right,
Yeah.
and we're using blending in order to make this picture have the most detail,
Yeah, exactly.
but still look like a real picture,
Natural,
not a
yeah.
cartoon or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
That's the whole point of
That's the whole
everything
point of
we're
it.
talking about. So we talked about shooting in RAW,
Yes.
exposing to the right,
Yep.
using your histogram to expose
Use
to the
as a
right.
gauge, yep.
We're talking about bracketing using different exposures, and then we're talking about blending those different exposures.
Yes.
But the luminosity mask, we don't need to have different exposures for that, right? We can do
Yes,
that.
you do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's what's being masked, is the different exposures.
Okay, so it's the same thing.
Same thing.
Okay.
So luminosity masks are just a more technical version of regular layer masks.
Okay.
It's just based on the selections being made. It's more accurate, but a little bit more complicated to do.
All right.
Because you can always just make that layer mask and, zoom in to 1,000% and paint in or paint out whatever you want. The luminosity mask does it for you without
So you don't have to
zooming
zoom in
in,
and
and it's
do
a
all
lot more
that.
accurate.
Okay. All right. Any other tips or tricks to make a natural looking image with a lot of detail?
Yeah, I would just say keep it simple. I do as little editing as I can.
Okay.
Besides, so once I blend everything together, all I'll really do is adjust like the vibrance, maybe some curves, adjustments, and that's it.
Okay.
Because I don't want to, I rarely touch the saturation slider, just because from what I saw is what I saw in the field, so I don't want it to be super oversaturated and unrealistic,
Right.
The other thing I don't use much is the clarity slider. I'll maybe use a little bit, but I know some people, they just push it all the way up to 100. Same thing with saturation, and they're like, oh wow, that's great.
Well, the problem with the clarity slider, which I see this all the time, is it gives a little halo around
Yeah.
things. And I don't know if people just don't notice that.
It's only I believe it's only like in the really dark areas where you'll see that halo.
So I don't use it very much either because
Yeah.
of that. I don't want that halo on my pictures. No
Yeah.
way.
It's funny, sometimes I find myself going in the negative direction with the clarity, because when you do that, it actually gives it a little bit more of a softer feel.
I do that on
Portraits.
I'm going to give you my little, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't do it on portraits, but I do it on event photography
Oh, okay.
portraits.
Yeah.
You know, what we call the Gripen Grins, where you're like, just let me get your picture, click, and then it goes into the society magazines or whatever.
Yeah.
Because, most of my customers are a little bit older, so
Yeah.
I just bring that clarity down just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because who wants to see every little wrinkle? Not me.
Exactly.
Nobody does. And
Yeah.
fortunately and unfortunately, digital cameras show every
everything,
little
yeah.
detail nowadays.
Especially now with the more megapixels, you're going to see every
pore,
little wrinkle, every
yeah,
pore.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I like that too. All right. Anything else?
No, just keep it simple. Just do as less editing as you can, because you've already captured it right in field. So now just work it down and keep it simple.
So how long does it take you to take a picture?
It depends.
Okay, let me just tell you what, this is why, and I know that it's always better to use a tripod, but I don't like using a tripod, because
Okay.
if I'm using a tripod, it's going to take me 10 minutes just to compose my picture, because I got to work with the
Yeah.
tripod to get it
Yeah.
straight.
Well, actually, I kind of start out like you, where I'll look for a composition just by hand holding my camera. So I'll, be on my legs and just going up and down. Once I find something I like, that's when I'll bring out the tripod and put the camera on it.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I do it.
So how
And I
long
have
would you
actually a
say?
little special tool
Okay.
called, it's an add-on to my ball head to where I don't have to adjust the legs. It's called a leveling base. So my tripod can be in the weirdest position, and with the leveling base, all I have to do is do that, make that level, and then I can work and everything is straight.
And it's a tool that you put onto
It's an
your
add-on to your tripod, yeah.
head, to the head.
Yeah, so it's tripod, then the leveling base, and then your ball head goes on top of that.
Ah.
Yeah. It's a lot of time being saved using that guy. Because I get in positions where I'm like, this tripod isn't going to be straight. It's going to take me too long. So I got this leveling base, and it saved me like...
Do you remember how much it costs?
They can be expensive. I think you can get some for $80, and it goes up to like $300, depending on the complexity of it.
Do you have like a favorite brand or anything?
I have the Acrotech.
Acrotech.
Acrotech, yeah.
Good to know. Good
Yeah,
to know.
I use the same ball head, so I might as well. I just said, let me get the leveling base as well.
Okay, so that's the brand of your ball head too.
Yeah,
Okay.
Acrotech.
Okay.
Yeah, and I love it.
All right. So once you get your composition, then you're using live view.
Live view.
Now, do you suck through the batteries like crazy using live view? Do you have extra batteries? Lots of them.
Yeah, I
on you all
have
the
extra
time?
batteries, but these days camera batteries,
They
you
last.
can go for a few hours and you're fine.
All right. So you're using live view. You've got the histogram up,
Yep.
and you're composing the picture.
Getting the
looking at
exposure
your,
right. Yep.
And then okay.
So I'll get that base exposure first, and that's when I'll raise my shutter to make it brighter and pushing my histogram to the right. And by now I know, sorry, how far I can go. But like I said, it's going to take some trial and error at first
Yeah. To get
to see
know
how
your
far
camera.
you can, yeah.
Okay. So your aperture when you're doing landscapes, what do you put your aperture at?
It ranges. So most of the time it's at between f9 and f11. If I want a sun star, I'll push it to 22.
I love those.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
the starburst effect
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, no, it's a great element.
And what's so cool about it is different lenses give you different
Different ones, yeah,
starbursts.
because of
And
the different blades.
I love
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
Sometimes I'm jealous. One time we were in Cuba this last trip and we all did that, and this one participant, she had I don't know what kind of lens, I can't remember, but she had the coolest starburst I ever saw.
Oh, cool. Yeah. They're like fingerprints, I guess. They all have their own
Yeah.
uniqueness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So F8, F11, and then do you just focus a third of the way in, or do you just
it
kind of
depends. So sometimes I'll also focus stack, which is kind of similar to exposure bracketing, but now you're bracketing the focus.
And
So if
how
I'm
do you
really
do
close to a foreground, so let's say I have a rock here right in front of me, it's really close to the lens. So I'll take my focus of that first part right there.
Do you do this in manual focus?
You can do it in manual or autofocus.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll use autofocus at first, and then I'll just manually adjust it if I feel it's a little off.
Okay.
And then, so that's one shot. Then I take another shot where I change the focus point.
So you go
So
back
somewhere
a
in
little
the middle,
farther?
yeah.
Okay.
And then I'll take one at infinity just to make sure the horizon is sharp. And the same thing in Photoshop, you take those three, auto align, and there you go, they're all combined.
And
so
you use the layer masks
Yes,
to do
yes.
the focus stacking too. You don't do any automatic
Well,
software for that either?
I use the automatic feature in Photoshop because it'll align it and blend the focus together.
How do you do that in Photoshop? I don't know.
It's
I
a
thought you had to
function.
buy a separate.
No, you can auto align in Photoshop. I think that's what it's
No,
called.
auto align. You just taught me how to do that. But
Yeah.
auto focus.
So there's a
stacking?
new function now I think it's below that. I can't really remember what it's called, but it's right below auto align. I think it's called auto blend images.
Okay.
And so it'll look for the focus, and it'll automatically combine them with the layer masks. So this is all just one button, tell it to go, and you won't be there painting in the focus.
I'm trying that.
Yeah, and it's
That's-
just as fast too. Maybe take like a minute depending on your computer.
I'm
But
trying
yeah,
that.
and it's actually very accurate. And if you see something's a little out of whack, you can always go back to that layer mask and paint it out. And that's the beauty of the layer mask.
Yeah, that's the better thing. Layer
Yeah.
masks are better than doing everything automatic because you have
Yeah.
all that control.
Yeah.
And I am a control freak,
Yeah.
man. I love
Yeah,
control.
absolutely. So
That
that's
is
how I'll
so-
do that, yeah.
That's so cool. I learned so much, and I know it was technical for some of our listeners probably, but Heather writes up amazing show notes, and then I'm going to add some of these to our short Tuesday videos. And audience, by the way, we have you know, the Understand Photography show is broadcast at 4 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook, but also on our YouTube channel every Tuesday we put a short training video out. So I'm going to take some of these and make them into little videos.
Absolutely. I actually have a video on my website.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I have a blog on my website, and I have a video showing where I go through the whole process of ETTR. I'm out in the field, I'm showing how far I can push it, then we go back into Lightroom and we do the whole editing process.
Oh, well, let's just link to his video.
So yeah, it's a little step by step. Yeah, it's a whole blog post, and it gets a little technical, but I kind of break it down. Okay. You know, I kind of follow your motto of simplifying the technical.
Simple. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's just link to his article then. Sounds even easier.
Yeah.
I'm into keeping it simple for me too, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you have coming up? What projects, what adventures are coming up for Satesh?
So this year I have a lot. I bought a kayak, and I'm going to be kayaking around all of Florida, taking different views and different pictures of, more remote places. Because some places you can't walk to, you have to like take a boat or a kayak. So I'm doing that.
I found you through Connie Meir, right?
Yep.
And I did a show where she taught us all about photographing from a canoe and how to steady your shots and all that other kind of stuff. So what you need to watch.
I have to watch her video again because I went out one time when I couldn't steady my boat. It just kept floating away. So I need to get her. She said to get like stakes or something.
Stick
yeah. So I need to get some of those.
Yeah, it was really. I learned so much.
It's so cool.
Show.
Yeah.
Okay, so fun. You got a kayak, and I'm going to be very envious because you know how I love Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Florida is paradise, and I'm like planning my day off. I haven't had a day off all winter because it's been so busy, and so next Wednesday I'm taking it off and I'm planning my trip and whatever I'm going to do, some exploring in Florida because it's so beautiful here.
Yeah, it is.
Even like we have cool little rednecky kind of towns and just all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, most of these lakes are in those areas, so
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you're going to go around taking photos, your seascapes from like in the mangrove kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because right now you're doing more ocean stuff,
I'm doing more ocean. So now I guess I'm keeping the body of water as a subject, but it'll be a lake or maybe a river. So
okay.
So I actually recently went to the Hillsborough River State Park for my first time.
I've never been.
And I loved it. It's amazing.
I don't know Miami area
I think it's
very
like, well, no, it's actually in Tampa. It's 20 minutes from Tampa.
Hillsborough's Tampa. Oh.
Yeah. And it's this beautiful lake where there's like class 2 rapids.
They have rapids in Florida?
Yeah, class 2 rapids, yeah.
I had no idea.
And it's just, the park is so beautiful and peaceful. It's an amazing place. I recommend, if you haven't been, Hillsborough River State Park.
Oh, wow.
I went once and I had to go back a few weeks later. I loved it that much.
And that's a long drive for you.
Yeah, it's
you're
like
in
4
Miami,
hours,
right?
yeah.
Miami or Fort Lauderdale?
Fort Lauderdale, yeah.
Fort Lauderdale. How many hours?
4.
It's 3 for me to go to Tampa. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. What else? I like hearing about your life.
So I'm actually expanding my blog. I started a blog years ago, but I never was consistent with it. So this year I'm trying to be consistent with it. I'm trying to do 2 articles a month, and they're all very informative. Sometimes the posts are about my adventures, so kind of follow along. I take my GoPro with me so you can walk with me
and see my GoPro right here.
Yeah, I love that thing. It's so compact, and it does the job well. So yeah, you can follow me as I'm hiking through the Hillsborough River State Park, while I'm kayaking.
Did you put the GoPro on your head?
I have it on my head or on my chest. Yeah, just so you get that point of view.
I love behind the scenes stuff.
Everybody
me too.
Does. I think that's why I got into it. I'm like, I can do that.
Maybe I should do that on my day off.
And with the GoPro, it's so easy. It's so lightweight, and just record and go.
All right, now you have said that in front of the entire audience, blogging twice a month. You can't get out of it now.
Yeah, no, it's a goal. I'm trying to really stick with it, And if you have a topic you want to explore, just send me an email. Because sometimes it's hard to come up with a topic,
Yeah, well,
so
what I've learned from putting out content is the more you do it, the more ideas you get.
Yeah.
And of course, interviewing people like you, it's just like I just learn things and, that sounds like a great topic we ought to explore and things like that too.
Yeah, and most of the time I'll just expand on one topic, like how we talked about exposure bracketing, and then we got into focus blending. So I'll do a blog post on that.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
You get ideas from your ideas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I mean. The more you do it, the more
Yeah,
ideas.
exactly.
Because when I know, I put out a newsletter every month, except I'm extremely late this month, but I've been doing it for, I don't know, however long I've been in business. I've been doing
Yeah.
a newsletter. And I tell everybody, you need to have a newsletter.
Yep.
Oh, I can't think of anything to say. But the whole thing is,
Yeah.
I can't keep mine short.
Yeah.
There's too much to say.
Yeah.
So the more you do it, the more you,
Yeah.
the more you.
Yeah, I'm starting that now. So once I do my blog, I'll send out the newsletter to all my subscribers and they'll get it.
Yeah,
So
that's a great idea.
yeah.
All right, so you got a kayak, you're blogging, anything else? And you're kind of
I'm
changing
still,
your look a little bit from straight oceans to
yeah,
inland
yeah,
waterways.
absolutely, yeah. No,
which is kind of exciting.
it's just there's just so much beauty in Florida. I don't want to leave anything out.
I love Florida, I know.
So I guess I am drawn to all bodies of water. I mean, I still have the love for the ocean, but these places, just these lakes and these rivers, are so peaceful and inviting and beautiful that it's like, why not take a picture?
I'm with you.
And share the beauty.
I hear you.
Yeah.
All right, and what's your website again?
Photography by Satesh or just Satesh.com.
Oh, is it photography by Satesh.com
Yeah,
works too?
It works, yeah. I bought that too. So, but
I bought PeggyFarren.com. I bought my son, Chris Farren, and Christopher Farren.
Okay,
I
yeah.
bought all that stuff. I thought I better grab this stuff while I can,
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, Satesh.com is the
Satesh.com.
main. It's short.
You sound
Kind of
like
easy to remember.
such a big shot too. Well,
Yeah, you know you've
it's
made it when
all
you have your
about-
own name as your website.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, and you can actually subscribe to my blog and newsletter from there. It's super easy.
Okay, right from your website.
Yeah,
All right.
perfect.
Are you on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook
As
at Photography by Satesh.
Photography by Satesh.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm actually trying to get better with those too.
It's hard.
It's
There's
hard.
a lot to do every day.
Yeah.
I struggle.
Yeah, sometimes I struggle to like make up a post, but I'm like, I'd rather put out something more interesting than just to post something. So I'm not like that everyday Instagrammer or Facebook person. When I have something interesting, that's when I'll share it.
Okay.
So
That's good. That's good.
yeah, but I try.
I know. It's just there's a lot to work. Now
It is, yeah.
nowadays it's if you think you're a photographer, that's what 10% of your job.
Yep. Marketing, social media, yeah, it's
A lot of other
a
things
lot,
to
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on to the
Thank
show
you for having me again.
I hope you'll come back again.
I will.
I really like you because you do research and you know what you're talking about and you're good at teaching.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
hoping
I
you'll
appreciate
come
that.
back.
I will.
All right. Thank you so much for watching the Understand Photography Show. Please, if you could, give us a review on iTunes. It really, really makes a difference to us, and I read everyone. Thank you, Jay, who put one on recently. And if you have any suggestions for topics or guests, just email me at info@understandphotography.com. I'm Peggy Farren. Thank you so much for watching the Understand Photography Show.